and brand. And welcome to Time to Be Reasonable. Uh, I have time to be reasonable, but I don't exactly know what I'm talking about tonight. I'll be honest with you. Oh, still getting over some things from the summer, just overall conditions and whatnot. Uh, I have the fan on, if that's too loud. I don't know what else to say, especially on the Libertarian broadcast, but is what it is. I'm not going to be changing that. It is been hot. It's been a record 100 every once in a while. So it is what it is. And I don't know. Supposed to have a bunch of boys and girls from Alabama coming on, but that just hasn't happened. I don't know what's happened. Maybe I need to make them another phone call. We've had some emails back and forth, but we haven't had any follow through from any of the candidates, and I'm not sure what that's about. Figured we'd have like a whole slew of them because there's like, I think they said they have like 38 or something like that candidates in Alabama. Love to help them out, but they got to come onto the show. Anyway, finished off the Anarchist show on HBO. I thought that was a pretty good show. The end was a little bit, it was weird because there were some things about it. I don't know, almost felt like it had the documentary message tuned in, but not necessarily where they started. And I'm not sure what that was about. There's a lot of basically, okay, well, now we're going to leave Acapulco, and everything that we were doing was kind of a bad idea. Which, I mean, they feel that way. That's great. I understand. I mean, it's hard. Someone got murdered. I get it. But at the same time, like one of the things that felt a little bit weird to me was that the woman whose husband was shot to death, she kind of spent the next this particular episode saying a lot of bad things about him, and that's, I mean, I know that sometimes the dead people might die and they might be bad people, and you might want to say something, but it was odd because it was like she was good with him throughout the whole thing. There was never like, and I didn't really like when he did that, but I just put up with it or whatever. And then when he got shot, she was devastated. And then it's like, I don't know if she was like, well, I can't really deal with the fact that he's gone, so I'm going to just look at just his bad points because that's the only way it'll work for me. I don't know. It was a good series. It was interesting. Felt bad about one of the guys passing away to cirrhosis of the liver, and his kids were really mad. His wife was really mad about that. And sometimes we need to think about the fact that even though being libertarian or being anarchist, that you have to think about the consequences of your actions and how they'll affect the other people that you drawn into your life. I mean, remember, we don't like leadership or guidance or people telling us what to do, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a moral compass, or we don't have a code that we follow. It means we don't need leadership to tell us what that code is. I mean, that's the whole thing. So There's a point where you know when you need to say when to drugs and alcohol, and you need to pay attention to that, because you have, by the nature of this political philosophy, or of this philosophy, yeah, political philosophy, of this type of a political philosophy, you've decided that you will take ownership of yourself. Um, and I could go into that the same way with masks, because it's one thing to say that the government shouldn't tell us what we have to do, but to ridicule people for doing what they feel is necessary and everything is not right. Um, if someone's like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to wear a mask," or "I'm going to close my business down because I don't want to spread this thing," or "I'm going to implement these things because I want to make sure and take care of my customers," that's not a question of being a statist. That's a question of having value and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm going to do in order to protect the individuals that come into my establishment," and that's a big difference. So it's frustrating. Anyway, there's one thing that I noticed, and it's basically the idea of well, that's the name of this of the political brand. It's F your feelings, and it really does have like this thing of no empathy, and I'm not sure that that's a great message. We don't have empathy for you. If you have this thing affecting you, if you have this family member that you're concerned about, F your feelings. And that's what that's a great message. It's not. It's, I think that positive messages are better than negative messages almost always. Um, because negative messages will start to breed hate, they'll start to breed anger, and you won't get a lot done that way, in my mind. So I don't know. That's what I think. You can correct me if you feel the need. But I don't have a lot today. Just some random thoughts, I guess. Um, I don't know if I've talked about 26 and 27. It's more just political than political philosophy, except for that. So when the Native American gambling bills came into play, I was supportive of a lot of them, and like whereas like you have to go and you have to ask in order to have um, your tribe have these large gambling establishments. Them now as San Manuel, Pachanga. Some of the bigger ones. Did Pachanga just change their name? I think they changed their name to like a really big fancy name with a Z or something. I think they did something like that. But I am totally cool with the idea of, hey, we have this territory, we have a right to have gambling. But I don't believe in stalling out competition, so I'm not going to be voting against 27, because if you take away the taking care of homeless, which is a nice thing that they're routing some money to take care of homeless, that's really good. The only thing I don't like about 27 is I don't understand why they feel the need to slam 26 when 26 was a bill that was put in by the Native Americans so that they could have roulette and some other gambling that's not the sports betting online. And when they did that, they didn't have anything to do with homeless because that's not what they were doing. They were asking to increase their overarching you know styles of gambling, and that that as it always does, that these funds do go to Native Americans. So I'm going to be voting for both bills, and we'll see where that goes. But like there's been some where it's funny because where they kind of switched over during I think a sports game, and they were like, "Don't you want to be able to bet on sports? Then vote for 27." And it was like just pure straight out. We are bringing the sports betting things there. One of the things that they've said is like it turns your phone into a gambling machine. And it's like, okay, because this thing exists. That was a question I had that nobody was able to answer that I put on some of the libertarian boards, which was if it is a gambling, if it turns your phone into gambling, what does that mean if like you have a city like Lakewood and you've got your cell phone and your cell phone has I can't think of one of them, but they're like they sponsor AEW, but let's say Player's Choice or whatever, because I can't think of the name. And you have that. Then what is Lakewood able to do? I mean, I guess they're probably not going to enforce on you, but it's weird. There's a lot of gambling in cities that you don't even know, and like there's some bars that will pay out the little card machines or what have you. And actually, it's funny. There's actually a lot of pusher machines. Well, there's not a lot of pusher machines, but there are some pusher machines in some cities where basically you put in your quarter, it hits a quarter, and then you're trying to get it to drop a quarter. That's a gambling style, but they are actually it's those machines are in Vegas, but they let you play them, so it's interesting. Of course, I always wondered about like betting on cards, like how that works. Like, I think they just like let it go, but who hasn't heard about people playing some penny ante with their kids, or just family or whatever. And I mean, you're like, we're betting doing the dishes or something like that. So it's kind of interesting. I know in my I'm doing some investigative reporting for in gaming. We found a lot of things where people were unhappy about loot boxes, especially things like FIFA, where they'd go in and they would get X amount of they'd get mom and dad's credit cards to try and get certain FIFA players, and now they're doing that with some NFT products too. So I mean, it's funny because it's like we don't allow gambling, but we do. In fact, I think I don't know what states, and feel free to help me with this. I don't know what states allow gambling or don't allow gambling, because like I know California has all the lotto, and then there's the Native American places, and then a couple. There's like the Hawaiian Gardens Casino in Carson where it's legal. They have Pai Gow Poker and some other games. Commerce, the Bicycle Club. There's some card games that are perfectly legal. Uh, and then like you have a lot of the big lotto game that goes across the country. So I don't know. Tons of gambling, but yet, you know, I mean, I'm sure Vegas doesn't want us to make all gambling legal, but at the same time, it's like, why not? I mean, you could limit it as far as by age if you're like, yeah, little kids probably shouldn't gamble because they can't contract, and since they can't contract, they can't gamble. Like, actually, that takes care of itself because you could actually say gambling is legal, and this be like, oh, of course, kids can't gamble because they can't legally contract with somebody, and that's how you gamble because it's like I'm going to, you have a chance of getting this for this, but you have to give me this if you fail. Well, a little kid can't do that. Um, what I mean by that is like a minor. A minor can't do that. So it takes care of itself. Like really, all you'd have to say is gambling is legal, and then the contracting just exists that way. Like you put it in the documentation, but it's not needed because you cannot legally make a contract with a kid, with a child, with a minor. Since you can't do that, it's not going to. There's really no reason to say you can't. DraftKings, that's the one I was thinking. Anyway, so gambling is that way, and then we have drugs, of course, and I've been watching Dope Sick. Really good movie if you ever or series if you get a chance. Michael Keaton is the town doctor that starts handing out scripts for oxycontin, and the big drug company, which the DEA decides to go after as a cartel because they're just doing so much damage. Um, and like basically their whole thing is, well, it's time released, and because it's time released, it's perfectly safe to have oxycontin. But what they just or what people are doing is or what they do, I guess, is they lick the coating off and then they smash it, and that even turns it into oxycodone. So it's not even oxycontin anymore. So it makes it much more lethal. And that, like, the little pain thing, which I found out is the where they point out the little happy faces. That's actually a way of saying, hey, this is pain is important, and we need to we could give different medications to people at the start as opposed to starting with the lowest and seeing how they deal with it. Um, it was really good, and it's basically people are working. It's specifically in Virginia. In this particular show, is that a lot of it happened in Virginia, where basically you had minors, those that work in mines, not underage people. They would go into work, and they would, like, this one lady, her back was just in solid pain, and then she like went to try and get some oxycontin, or well, she tried to get something, and some of them knew that oxycontin wasn't good because but this was their new release. Or it wasn't oxycodone, it was oxycontin, because it was different. It had the time delays and stuff like that, but turned out that that wasn't that big of a difference. Um, I think it's interesting. I've been watching a lot of shows, and I've noticed that there's a lot of interesting things that are starting to come in. Like I watched The Good Wife, and then I started watching The Good Fight, and one of the main partners is first she ends up having like psychedelic mushrooms in grape juice, and she's just like been drinking a little bit of it throughout the season, and she's affected by it. And then the last season, recently, she goes to a psychedelic doctor whose purpose is to subscribe the psychedelics, and they're used like just to be able to look in yourself so that way you can be more aware, that kind of thing. But it's interesting because it's like it's a discussion that we wouldn't have had years ago when we were just starting to talk about things like marijuana, and now we're talking about psychedelics as a regular use type thing. So I think it's interesting. Um, I personally have never thought it's not my bag, but it might be some, if it's other people's bags, I'm certainly not going to be in the way of that. Um, I just have always been able to think of different things differently, and I have never really felt the need to have help. Or as Medea says, I can do bad all by myself, or I can kind of become aware. I don't know. I'm not sure why that is. Like I could always follow tracer lines on my fingers without being affected by anything specifically. So, but I think people, they have the option. It's fine. I agree with Judge Gray. We should make it, legal. Put labels on it, and you know, also tax it. Although I don't know. I guess people don't like that, but it could be used. It could be used to, come up with some of the things that are needed for drug abuse, because that's going to happen. Um, but like I know that I don't know what's going on with the California drug program as far as what's going on with Gavin's program. I mean, when he passed 64, he said we need to do research before we can claim the medical effectiveness of marijuana, but I don't know if he's actually looked into it or not. I think next show I'm going to see if I can find that out. That would be interesting. Um, Pretty soon we're going to have the ability where you can buy some games and help us out. Try not to discuss. Well, I mean, also you can go onto T Public right now. There's a sale, and you can get. I think we have 3 of the Time to Be Reasonable shirts right now on tpublic.com/stores/gaming-fixx, and I don't really want to switch my storefronts, and I know it's a little weird that it's Gaming Fix, but that's kind of where we started out. So that's where I have my shirts. So if you can pick up some of those, or pick up some bags or stickers or anything really, pillows, anything helps. And they kick us back about $2 or $3, and that really does help, and we appreciate it. But that's got the Time to Be Reasonable shirt, which is the background that you see right here with Time to Be Reasonable on it. So it's pretty cool. And yeah. And I'm trying to think about anything else that is interesting. I don't know. I haven't been able to go to the city council meeting here in Bellflower because I've just been not feeling well. So getting to that has been kind of difficult. And I got to talk about this for a minute. It's like sometimes I don't understand the concept of woke. It bothers me because I get a feeling like a lot of folks out there want to say that woke is, when somebody is, when they're saying, hey, people aren't being treated right in civil rights or something like that. And that's not woke. That's wanting to make sure and protect people. That's injustice. That's not, oh well, people are just, they're just trying to protect this class or that class, or they're concerned about things that are frivolous. This isn't a frivolous thing. As far as when you're talking about somebody getting beat down and getting torn away from their car and shot to death or something along those lines, that's not the same thing. And if you think it is, then please don't watch my program. Please don't associate with me, because that's not the same thing. And honestly, I don't really care about things that people are concerned about, like as far as woke goes, because the whole idea to me is that somebody doesn't want to be treated a certain way. It's not that big of a deal to treat them better. Let me say that again. If somebody doesn't want to be treated badly, it's not a problem to treat them better. You're not better off being able to use certain words that are hurtful because you feel that your freedoms are somehow more exercised. You're wrong. Write it on your forehead with a magic marker and carve it into your head with a fucking carpet knife. Because it bugs me. It bugs me that people think that it's okay to hurt people. And it's like, well, I should get to hurt people. Why not? I mean, yeah, that might make them feel bad, but I don't have to care. All right, but you're not a very good human being. And go ahead and look dead in my eyes and sit there and say, well, he's woke. Because I'm not talking about woke. I'm talking about being a decent human being. I'm talking about protecting an individual because you have a moral responsibility, not by anybody else but you, because you are trying to be a better person in this universe, hopefully. Anyway, Good night, everybody.